Hauser, aka Hawkblogger, and we have been battling all sorts of fun technical issues. We have every finger, every toe crossed across Toronto, Redmond, Arizona, everywhere. So that this is going to work. So hopefully you guys are hearing me. Hopefully you're hearing me without echo. Hopefully you're hearing me without like a huge delay between when I talk and my audio. And I think it should hopefully work for everyone else as well. I'll introduce the fellas in a second. You know them all well. Before I do, really want to, again, thank the folks that have been patrons up until now. It's huge help. As you know, they stopped using Google Hangouts on air. Today is officially the day that we can no longer use Google's solution, which was a wonderful free solution for us. And we have some other solutions that we've had to invest in and some technology and some stuff we're learning. We're also bringing aboard guys like Cable Thanos, Josh, and Will from Rain City Series to help do some more production work on these pods, as well as we're talking about some other video projects. I know you guys love their projects, so looking for as many ways to give you guys great Seahawks content as possible. But we need your help. So if you haven't already, please head over to patreon.com, patreon.com/hawkblogger. $5 a month will do. If you can do more, that would be great. $5 a month would be fantastic. So we've added a bunch of patrons already. We want to look for ways to kind of bring the community together. But in the meantime, if for any reason you're not able to do that right now, there's other ways you can help. There are things like subscribing to the YouTube channel, following at Real Hawk Talk on Twitter, following the accounts you see on the stream right now for all of us. A huge thing that's helpful is leaving a review. Go to iTunes, leave a review on the pod, a positive one, 5-star review. If it's less than 5 stars, come to us. Let us know what we can do to make it better. I'm guessing some of it might be the audio stuff that we'll still work through, but otherwise, leaving reviews, and then even just listening is huge help. So the more episodes you listen, the more listens that we get and listeners that are counted and all that stuff, super helpful. So all those things free to do that can be helpful, and then the Patreon piece would be great as well. So with all that said, let me bring in the fellas. We're going to go, I guess it would be clockwise for me. To my right, well, to my left, I guess, on the screen, would be Evan Hill. Evan, at Evan Hill, SEA. How are you doing, dude?
I am doing so well. I am so glad this OBS system is working. We were in shaky water for a little bit, so it looks like everybody says in the chat that things are working well, so happy to be back.
Yeah, dude. And then we've got at Nathan E11 in our bottom Brady Bunch, what would be a right-hand corner, I guess, for you guys. And no, I'm not going to, my right and my left are completely, I'm still working on that. Give me some time. So welcome to the show, Nathan. Good to see you, dude.
Hey, good to be here.
And then finally, we've got at Real Jeff Simmons up there in Toronto. And he's got crystal clear HD. The guy's got his technical issues solved. We should all look up to him. Welcome to the show, man.
What's going on? You never know who's listening to this show. I was playing softball this week. I've told you guys this already. And someone wearing a Seahawks t-shirt came up to me in the middle of the game. And he's like, "Are you Real Jeff Simmons from Real Hawk Talk?" And I couldn't believe it.
Did you say that?
I didn't know we had
Jeff Simmons.
I was so surprised I didn't even think to make a joke. It was just, you never know where people are listening. It's kind of playing ball if someone comes up, and there have been loyal listeners of our show. So if you're listening now, that was awesome. Just, it's cool. It's cool that we've been doing this for 66 episodes now and still growing. And just, yeah, I'm excited for another season, and let's keep going. And it seems like our technical issues are behind us.
Fingers crossed. Let's hope.
Seems like.
All right, fellas, we've got a lot to cover today. There's been a lot going on. We haven't talked since training camp started, and that's a pretty big deal. Lots gone on, a lot of news. We've got some injury news. We've got some contract news, And then I got to go to my first training camp of the year today, and I had a lot of impressions that I can share with you guys. We can talk about what's coming next. Let's go round robin, and we're going to go reverse order of what we just did. Let's go with you, Jeff. What have you been paying attention to of the storylines so far that have grabbed your attention in camp?
Right now, I'm all focused on the offense, especially the receiver group. Even before all this unfortunate news that's come out on the defense, I thought the defense was going to be pretty bad. Now, when you take away Jaron Reed for 6 games, we're going to talk about this later on, I assume, but LJ Collier is now going to be out for significant time, and Ziggy Ansah's timeline still remains unclear. So you take those 3 out on a defense that I thought would be pretty bad anyway. Really, so the team all becomes, to me, it's all about the offense this year. It's all about Russell. Early indications are the offense has been great. And Brian, you were there today. You can touch on this later, but I've been really focused on Ali, who's been playing well, and David Moore's a guy I was really excited about coming into the camp. He seems to be doing well. Obviously, the DK Metcalf, we're going to talk about him a lot. And the tight end group seems pretty interesting. And Brian had a bit of a scare today on he'll get into that later. But yeah, I'm looking at the passing game right now and who's going to emerge. We show Doug Baldwin's not back. That's such a big deal. How Tyler Lockett adjusts to a number 1 role, and it seems like it's going really, really well. So yeah, I'm focused on the offense, the passing game, and what the receiver group and tight end group is going to be.
And what about you, Nathan? What have you been reading? What have you been paying attention to? What's jumping out to you so far in camp?
I mean, the big thing for me is just trying to keep on top of who's playing nickel corner, who's playing free safety. I think that it's always hard to tell with camp whether a good play on offense is because of bad defense or good offense or what, but those are the 2 biggest question marks in terms of like position battles for me, and so those are the ones I've been really trying to keep a close eye on.
Is there anything that you've heard of in those battles that has piqued your interest?
It sounds like maybe a King is kind of being looked at as a regular nickel, although I heard Kalen Reed was playing there a little bit too. And everything I'm hearing, it sounds like Tedrick Thompson is the guy to beat at free safety. That ones and everything like that. I haven't heard of anyone supplanting him yet. But still early on all that. So we'll see how that kind of evolves as camp goes on.
And Evan, for you, what have you been watching and listening to related to camp?
I have been exclusively focused on our number 1 receiver, DK Metcalf. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos that are being tweeted out, but DK is running perfect routes, perfect slants, diving for the football, red zone plays. He has a lot of hype, but he also has a lot of haters. One such person being on this podcast. But the good news is the haters, the doubters are up against the wall. DK is proving everybody wrong. He is balling out in training camp. And I think this receiver group is actually going to end up being one of the stronger units, one of the stronger position groups on this team. So I'm super excited about the receiver group. I think DK Metcalf, I don't know if you guys saw the image or photo that somebody tweeted out the other day of him standing next to Tyler Lockett. It was just a hilarious size difference. But, really excited about the news that has already come out of training camp. And if that position group can, step up this year, that'll be big for Russell.
I just want to pause on the Tyler Lockett slander there. I don't want that to just kind of slide on by. I didn't know that Tyler got demoted to the second best receiver on this team.
Well, it's currently him and DK battling for number 1.
Wow. Okay.
Having been at camp, I can tell you that that's actually not the case yet. Although Evan's predictions are famously accurate, so we'll wait around and see how that turns out. I have to say, I mean, I've been somewhere in between. I've been definitely excited about DK Metcalf, but I think that there's been some concerning video and some concerning, views of his route running for sure up until now. And so I wanted to see him in person. And honestly, the things that stood out for me about DK Metcalf is one, it shouldn't be a huge shock to anyone, but he stands out on the field. Like, big dude, 6'3", he's slender, and then watching him do kick returns was one of the times that really was like, wow, I didn't know he was doing those, and I was like, who was that? And turns out he was fourth in line behind Tyler Lockett, David Moore, Rashad Penny, and then Metcalf was doing kick returns. And he's 6'3". Those other guys are like, the tallest one was David Moore at 6 feet tall, 6 feet even. And Metcalf has the best acceleration of any of them. Like, and it's really weird to see a tall, lanky guy faster than Tyler Lockett. It's just a weird thing to kind of to see. But then I watched him run some. He was running a lot of square out routes, like just basic 5-10 yard outs, whatever, and doing that with Russell against air to start with. But I was watching him, and they're fine. They're fine as far as his breaks. But what you really see when he's up against a corner is that he's got this huge body and he's got these really long arms. And so when Russell's throwing the ball in the right place on the outside of his frame toward the sideline, his breaks don't have to be exact. The corners have a long distance to go to get from where they are to across his body and all the way across his arms to catch the ball or to knock the ball away. So anyway, I came away pretty positive about DK. No real difference, just a little bit more reassurance. They were not wearing pads today, so I didn't get to see him really play against press in the same way. We'll see when there's contact. Obviously, there's more hoops that he has to jump through, but I was really pleased with what I saw there. I'll tell you a guy that did not show up for me today, and I'm curious what you guys think. Gary Jennings was nowhere. He's number 11. I didn't notice him throughout the entire practice, and then I was like, whoa, well, maybe he's hurt. And I started looking around, and he was there. He was playing. He was actually taking a snap at that moment, but I don't think he got a target. I didn't notice him in any other way. That does not mean that he's not a good player and that he's doomed to fail, but I think it's just a reminder. He's a fourth-round pick. I think a lot of us have assumed that he is a lock for this roster. There's a lot of competition. Malik Turner had an awesome day today. Like, really, really good. David Moore looked good today. Jerron Brown looked fine today. Looks like a reliable receiver. Like, I don't think it's a guarantee that Gary Jennings makes this squad. And I'm kind of curious. Nathan, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's just a question of who beats him out. If you say Lockett, Metcalf, Brown, and Moore all make it, then you still need someone like Turner or Ursua or Darbo or Nyquan Murray. I mean, are those guys really going to take his spot? Maybe, but I don't know. I think we probably need to give that more time.
Jeff, if Gary Jennings did not make this roster, how surprised would you be?
Not that surprised. Really? They have a history of fourth-round picks and whiffing there with receivers. I guess Darbo was a third-round pick. There was Chris Harper, the receiver. Who was that white guy that they thought was Jordy Nelson? Chris Durham. History of Schneider. He's had trouble hitting on receivers in the fourth round. Obviously, I was pretty high on Jennings coming out of college, and yeah, maybe I would have assumed he'd be in. But if he comes up and has a bad camp and say Turner or someone passes him, that wouldn't, or Sua passes him, that really wouldn't surprise me just based on their history. But Brian, you were there today. You were one of the guys ahead of the curve years ago when Darbo had bad camps. Like, did Jennings look like Darbo, or was he just hard to see? Like, you could tell right away that Darbo wasn't.
That's part of what jumped out to me was, the Darbo thing. What happened is I went to a week of camp and never saw him do a single thing. And I was like, wait a second, I haven't heard anything from Darbo. And there were times when maybe he was targeted and didn't come up with a play, a deep ball, things like that. And that's when it was like, okay, I'm just not seeing it. It's one day with Jennings. I will say that I have not, in all the stuff I've been reading about camp, I have not seen anyone else write about him having a good practice yet, or being the one of the guys that stood out. If that's the case, if he's gone now 6 practices without making an impact, then yeah, it's a concern. I'm certainly going to keep an eye out for him tomorrow. I'm going to watch him a little bit, whether he's targeted or not, just to see how his routes are and what's going on there. But I mean, John Ursua made a catch today on the play I was looking for Jennings, and that was his one catch, but he made it. Jacob Hollister made a catch today, and Justin Johnson, who we'll talk about in a second, and there's a lot of guys that made catches today. They threw the ball a fair amount, and Jennings was not one of them. So I just thought that was of note. Given for me, it will be a pretty big surprise. I really like Jennings' skill set, and I thought that maybe he was even going to be ahead of DK Metcalf from a skill set perspective, just from a polish as a receiver. But we'll see. We'll see. The jury's out for sure on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if he doesn't make it, but I mean, Darbo looked poor in camp. He was like a late 3rd round comp pick, right? He still made a team for a year. So ultimately, somebody still has to take his spot, right, or beat him out. I think Jennings probably still has inside track on all the other guys just based on draft positions. So
well, there was another bit of news that came up, and it was not great. And this was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Or maybe 2 days ago. Yeah.
2 days ago.
Our 1st round pick, not our 4th round pick. LJ Collier went down. Turns out he limped off the field initially and then was carted off the field. And the Real Hawk Talk chat got very active on that topic. There was a lot of catastrophizing going on. So, Evan, what were your thoughts when you heard that news?
To be honest, I don't have high expectations for this group. I really don't, especially with Frank Clark, being traded, Jaron Reed gone. This group is super, super weak. I think somebody tweeted the starting lineup today with Jaron Reed out. It was like Brandon Jackson, Rasheem Green, Poona Ford, and I forget who the other, maybe Cassius Marsh. This group is not good. And to be honest with you, I don't huge year one impact. However, the time, the reps, these early days for rookies are super, super important. And if he had torn his ACL, which was heavily speculated because he was carted off and he couldn't even walk off the field, if he had torn his ACL and was out for the year, that would have been devastating, obviously. So I think my overwhelming, reaction was, thank God we just dodged a bullet, because we have not had super strong luck with defensive linemen in early rounds. And I'm just hoping that LJ Collier can come in and be a contributor as soon as possible, just because, outside of Jaron Reed, there's not a lot of leaders in that position group. So just thankful we dodged a bullet. It sounds like it's a very strange not high ankle sprain, but a high part of the ankle. I don't know if you guys were seeing Pro Football Doc's tweets on that today, and Pete Carroll talking about it in the press conference, but sounds like it's an ankle injury that the team docs have never seen before, which is really interesting. So it'll be something to watch over the coming weeks for sure.
Nathan, you asked somebody about it. What did they say was potentially injured?
He may have tore his longest. Go ahead. You can chuckle. No, yeah, it was weird. So, HG Robot, I actually don't know what his expertise is, but he said things that sound smart. And yeah, so he was just saying that there's a couple different ligaments in there that he could have potentially torn or sprained, sprain is a tear, but yeah, it sounds not good. High ankle sprains are never good, and then this one sounds weird and rare, which seems especially work long term. But like you said, it sucks for him to lose the practice reps and everything as a rookie. So,
Jeff, have you ever hurt your longest?
No, I don't move quick enough to get injured.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of people that seem to think that might be when it was the top of the foot, that was the piece, that was the part that was injured. And might require surgery. Let's assume for a second that let's be like totally extreme and say, all right, Jamarco Jones had a high ankle sprain last year and was put on IR and didn't play the whole season. Let's go all the way to that extreme and say that that's what happens with LJ Collier. What is the impact to the Seahawks this year?
It's honestly probably not as big it probably sucks more. Like I said, this probably isn't something that's going to linger. Like, it's not like he wrecked his knee and may have lost whatever athleticism he had. But this could still have a bigger effect in the long term than the short term. Like, rookie defensive ends and rookie pass rushers don't usually contribute a lot right away. But you're just pushing out his development time that much more. And so that's probably the part that sucks the most about it, more than any real impact to like the team this year, even though they do, need all the help that they, can use all the help that they can get.
Jeff, your thoughts on what this means for, the team and your expectations, and more importantly, what you think it would mean for, let's go to the other end. Let's say he just misses preseason, all of preseason, all of training camp. What does that mean for LJ Collier and his development?
He's behind the eight ball, and Nathan said it before we talked about it in the chat. Rookie defensive ends have a huge learning curve. It's one of the hardest positions to come into the league, and I think, Brian, you said in our chat yesterday, Frank Clark had 3 sacks as a rookie on a pretty loaded defensive line group where he wasn't getting a lot of attention. So it doesn't mean a ton for the Seahawks, but from him, I think Fetty had a similar his rookie year, and he felt like he was chasing the whole time. And really, if you think about it, they've had a lot of bad luck with injuries. Penny got hurt last year, first-round pick. Fetty, McDowell never played. Even Percy Harvin was their first-round pick technically one year. He got hurt. He never played in training camp. So sadly, we're kind of used to this by now, where the first-round pick is kind of chasing. And Penny was kind of screwed up all year last year because of that injury. It really set his whole season back based on his weight, based on how comfortable he got with the speed of the game. Losing those training camp snaps and preseason snaps were huge for a guy like Penny last year. So Collier might go through the same kind of thing where the speed of the game is going to be really different. Getting your feet wet and kind of acclimating yourself. And it seemed like Collier was doing a pretty decent job from all indications, but those snaps are huge. And really, he was going to get thrown to the fire this year just because of how bad that group is on paper. So it's not the worst thing because it's probably going to be bad anyway. But man, that Frank Clark trade, you got Ansah, you got Collier. Those were kind of the guys you needed to replace him in the whole Moneyball thing. They don't have any of them potentially.
It's definitely weird seeing Ben Burke-Irvin running around in a 55 jersey instead of Frank Clark. But in any event, I was pretty excited about Collier and thought he might be better than some people expected. Didn't expect him to be hugely productive, but thought he might be, someone who could contribute and be a growing part of the line. It didn't help that the day that he went down was a day that he was looking pretty rough in training camp and getting some developmental teaching. Now, every player will tell you if you're criticizing a rep that you see in training camp, you are a total fanboy idiot because they're all trying new things and trying to learn. So, you have to be careful about that. But you also heard from Dwayne Brown. He's talked about that, he hopes he's going to be back, but he also mentioned that Collier is a little raw in his technique, which is, I think, as nice as a way you can say that he's got some work to do. So it probably productively on the field-wise probably doesn't make a huge bit of difference. I think for Collier's development, I think it could be a huge issue. The earliest he seems like he's going to be back is, the regular season. But it wouldn't shock me, depending on how bad it is, if the team does put him on IR and decide to make him potentially one of those guys that they recall. Because he can still, be around and work out with the team during that period of time. So we'll see.
If he goes on IR in preseason, though, he can't come back.
We had the same conversation last year. I remember the debate. I don't remember what we learned, which is really a bad thing.
I believe that is the case.
I thought they made a change to that rule, and
They definitely changed something with the IR rules recently, but if you guys continue the discussion, I'll look it up.
Well, and so while you're doing that, so in case people are wondering about him, the opportunity for him to go on the PUP list, you can only do that if you fail a physical at the start of camp. So since that time has passed, right, all those guys that went on PUP right at the start, nobody else can be added to PUP. The guys on PUP can come off at any time unless they get to the season and they got to be out 6 weeks. But like PUP isn't an option for Collier, so it's either IR designated to return, which Evan is going to tell us what their options are.
Yeah.
Nice chest hair there, Brian.
I was wondering what was going on there.
So it sounds like the old IR rule was a 2012 rule that allowed teams only to activate a single player from the IR once he'd spent at least 8 weeks on the inactive list. The new IR rule allows 2 players to return back to play instead of 1. Now I'm trying to see if there's anything that requires them. I don't think the 8-game thing has changed actually, but it allows 2 players now for sure.
So you don't know yet?
It doesn't say.
Yeah. In any event, we'll see what happens. Most people, no one really knows what's going on. I will say that when Carroll says he's never seen something before and it's worse than they thought, I mean, he's not a guy that tends to be negative about injury. And when he says it's going to be, a number of weeks, I don't think that usually means like 2 to 3. So I think it's fair to expect that Collier is going to be out for an extended period of time. We should be expecting the team to be assembling their rotation without him in mind. And even when he comes back, he's going to be so far behind in terms of knowing what he needs to do in the scheme and how to play. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to get ahead of him. And it's a question of whether they'll decide that they want to keep the roster spot for somebody else that can contribute right away, or they think that he can come back and be an impact player. So we shall see. Other parts of that defensive line, guys, it was rough. I mean, there's just nobody that really stands out. I mean, even Jaron Reed.
You know who I feel like?
Go ahead.
Brian, I'm sorry. I have to interject here. You know who I feel like is not getting enough heat? Is what's his name? Green? What's his first name?
Green.
I'm forgetting his name. Green. 3rd round pick from last year. Had a good preseason. I think he had like 2.5 sacks in preseason last year. It did absolutely nothing all year long. 0 impact. I feel like we have forgotten about him, and he needs to take a big step forward this year. If he's going to want to have a successful career in the NFL, he has absolutely nobody in front of him right now. He's going to get the reps. He has to perform. So that's one player I think that we're sort of forgetting about, but I think we should have high expectations for.
I will say he stood out to me today in terms of looking really – he looks great. He looks like he's actually trimmed down, which I don't know if that's going to help or hurt, but he looks really lean. In fact, I wrote in the notes that – in my notes, I don't think I published it, but more and more he looks like he could be a Leo and not just a 5-technique defensive end. He's kind of long and lean, but I don't think that's where they're playing him right now. And you're right, Evan. He has not done anything yet. He hasn't. So we'll see what comes of that. A guy that kind of looked good today on the defensive line was that massive defensive tackle out of Michigan, Brian Mone. I don't know if it's Monet or Moan or what, but it's M-O-N-E. The guy's 366 pounds, and he's wearing number 79. Woo! He's got kind of like the Red Bryant thing going on, but he moves pretty well, and he pursues really well. So he's got a little bit of a Taba Rubin to him, but he's a guy that I'm curious to watch more of. I think Green at least looked the part. I didn't see him. It's really hard to judge line play in these non-padded practices. And then Jacob Martin, forgetting his first name for a second. He looks fast as ever. I mean, the guy's super fast, and I think there's reason to be excited still about him. In general, you've got Al Woods, and you've got Earl Mitchell, and you've got Brandon Jackson, and you've got Quentin Jefferson, and Poona Ford even. Like, they don't, they do not jump off the screen at you at all. So.
And I mean, you wouldn't really expect those types to jump off, right? Like, it makes sense that Jacob Martin looks fast and athletic and kind of pops, and that maybe, Quentin Jefferson, who we know is a pretty good player, just kind of looks like a guy at this point in practice and everything.
It's fair, and we'll kind of see. What I wrote and what my general takeaway is that it felt like today that the Seahawks have a team full of backup defensive linemen, of which they will pick 4 to be starters. That's what it felt like.
They do.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of Cassius Marsh this year, who was picked up for basically nothing. Quentin Jefferson, who's been waived, 2 or 3 times by now? Those are probably the starters. It doesn't look like that. That's it.
Yeah.
Do you guys buy the rumors that they're shopping around right now?
Shopping who?
I do, but I would imagine it's more like a Justin Coleman type trade than a Clowney.
Well,
yeah.
Nick Perry's still out there.
Well, so people in the chat are asking about, and I've heard this on Twitter too, about Robert Ndiche. Kimdiche?
No. Do not go for him. What is appealing about him? Somebody explain the appeal to me. He was a complete failure in Arizona. What do you appeal with him?
He was low-key a failure at Ole Miss, too. Like, he was not the player he was supposed to be. But he's one of those, I mean, I still hold a crush for John Ross, and it's kind of the same thing. I mean, John Ross was a fantastic college player, which you can't say about Nkemdiche, but he's got the athleticism and all that you can kind of pretend he's whatever you want him to be. But I wouldn't touch him. He's had... I usually don't worry much about character concerns and stuff like that, but I think that his character concerns have really proven to be an issue for him. He has not developed at any point in his career the way he's expected to develop.
He showed up to Arizona training camp, overweight, had just got it was either I know for sure he was driving or speeding with a suspended license. They found cocaine in his vehicle. Like, the combination of all of this is not good, including the fact that he hasn't produced in Arizona. I just do not even see the appeal with him. He passed waivers. No team put a claim in for him. I don't think Seattle is interested, and I don't think they should be.
No, I think it's all about just confirming prior draft stuff. A lot of people wanted Seattle to take him that year. They thought him with this defensive line group at the time would have been a dominant player. I remember everyone was so pissed. He went to Arizona. Oh, he's in the division now, and he's been a bust on the field and off the field. So, yeah, I'm with Evan on this. I don't see – and they need more defensive end help, not defensive tackle. They got Poona there, and they got their 2 damn players, Earl Mitchell or
Al Woods.
Yeah, those guys can play in rundowns. Poona will play in passing downs. They need edge help, and that's not what MDJ or whatever, how do you ever say his name? That's not.
So we also, last time we spoke, guys, was after the Jaron Reed news broke about his 6-game suspension, and we were talking about what they might do as a result of that move. What came out after, the Seahawks acquired Earl Mitchell, but you remember that there was another pretty big name that got released from the Green Bay Packers, and his name is Mike Daniels, and he did not go to Seattle. Jeff, what was your take on both Daniels not coming here and Mitchell being the guy that they go after?
I don't get it at all. We talked about Gerald McCoy so many times, Sue. The day Jaron Reed got suspended, they literally got something handed in their lap. The player at a position of need who's still pretty good based on a lot of the advanced metrics. He's had some injury concerns. I think Nathan's mentioned that before, but he's a really, really good player. He's proven. He's a veteran. They have cap room. He got a 1-year deal. In the end, he signed with Detroit because he wanted to get back at Green Bay, but what a better way to get back at Green Bay than Cole Rogers, Wilson stuff. I don't understand it. I thought he was the perfect guy they should go after. They need that interior more of a dynamic player. Earl Mitchell is what he is. He's another Al Woods. I don't understand it at all. I think that was a huge miss by them. They got cap room. They don't need to roll anything over. He signed a 1-year deal for less than McCoy, and he might be better than McCoy at this stage. He's a very good player. I don't get it.
Evan or Nathan, did it bother you that they did not get Daniels?
Did it bother me? Not really. Did it surprise me? Not at all. Seattle they like to claim themselves as a highly conservative organization. They didn't want Sheldon at $8 to $10 million or a year or whatever.
They wanted a second round pick though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but when it came to contract time, they weren't willing to pay him that. I'm not surprised that they wouldn't pay Mike Daniels $9 million or whatever he got.
I would have in a second.
Yeah, no,
He got 1 year, right? Did he get 1 year or 2 years?
1 year.
Improvement deal.
You know, guys, as we're talking about it, what kind of occurs to me is their personnel is starting to look a little bit more like a 3-4 than a 4-3, and
so I was going to talk about that.
They've always been a hybrid. They are 4-3 personnel that has 3-4 tendencies in some of how they set up their defense. And I mean, for folks that aren't super geeky about it, and I'm not even the geekiest by far on this, 3-4 defenses generally have a nose tackle who's super stout, holding the line, and then you've got two larger defensive ends who are not necessarily big pass rushers. They're also basically defensive tackles. And then your edge rushers are really linebackers, outside linebackers. So, I think, is Jadeveon Clowney technically an outside linebacker for the Texans? I think he is.
The Texans would love for you to believe that.
Yeah,
he is.
Like, in the technical sense, he is an outside linebacker in that defense. Or are you disagreeing with that? Maybe I'm wrong.
That is in the technical way to be wrong about it. Yeah, he stands up and right,
absolutely.
Right?
So the major point I'm making is you look at the Seahawks personnel now. You've got Earl Mitchell, Al Woods, Poona Ford, all defensive tackles, all run stuffers, right? None of them clear pass rushers. Then you've got a guy like Brian Monet, who's 370 pounds, who might be interesting. And then you've got, if you look at the place where you've got a lot of talent, it is in the linebacker position. I don't think we're going to see anything crazy like them going and actually playing 4 linebackers where you get like Cody Barton on the field all of a sudden with Michael Kendricks and KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner. But I do start to just wonder if Carroll will look a little bit at ways to bring more guys on the field that from a position of strength, and maybe he will think about this defense a little bit more like a 3-4. Probably not, but it occurred to me as you guys were talking about it, and I was thinking about that position group.
You're not the first person to say that, Brian.
Okay.
I was listening to Jay Keeps on the radio, and he brought that up a lot. He thinks that Pete is completely changing his defensive alignment all year. He says where they used to build around secondary and big corners. He said the whole Pete, because of how teams have attacked them, want to build their defense in this version of the LOB or whatever they're going to be called now around linebackers because of how the game's gone and how teams have attacked them. He says that's why they've been so aggressive and kind of bring KJ back and Kendricks and Barden and signing Bobby. He thinks that, well, he said this, I don't necessarily agree, but he says that Pete takes all his heat for lack of adaptation. He's saying, watch this year what different looks they get and how they're building this unit around linebackers. I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but he mentioned that a few times this week.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you really just plug the gaps up front and let the linebackers run around and be the guys making plays, it would be interesting. I heard from more than one person that the Seahawks have been playing more too high safety, more than they ever have, at least in camp, and that I think somebody actually asked Pete about that in a press conference, and he was not happy. Like, I'm not sure if he wasn't happy because he was annoyed that someone was trying to act like they know about X's and O's.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Or if he was angry because he doesn't want people talking about their changes to the defense. So there is some evidence that they are looking at ways to modify the way this defense is playing. And I'm all for it, to be honest, because I don't think they have the personnel to say, yeah, we're just going to keep running what we ran and hope it's going to be great. They just don't have the same personnel. I will tell you, switching gears real quick, one guy that I think I mentioned in one of our last podcasts, but I got way more excited about him today, and he did not do anything on the field to do that, to engender the excitement. But Simeon Thomas, cornerback. He's the guy that they acquired. He was a 6th-round pick of Cleveland last year, and he got cut by Cleveland. The Seahawks picked him up and put him on their 53-man roster last year, and they carried him all year. He's 6'3". I don't know how much, he's a couple hundred pounds, but he is built in a really interesting way. He's super high cut, where he's got really long legs, really slender calves, and really long arms and broad shoulders. It's like, I'm really looking forward to you guys seeing him, and I want to see him in coverage more. I caught a couple things today, but again, it was kind of hard because they were on the far side of the practice field and they weren't wearing pads and all that stuff. But just looking at him, there's been a couple players where I'm like, wow, they strolled on the field. Like, I'm not saying that he is like these guys, but just from his physical build being unique and interesting perspective, when I saw Cam Chancellor, when I saw Richard Sherman, when I saw Brandon Browner, like, as maybe a better example, I was like, wow, that is a unique physical specimen. KJ Wright was another one. Like, wow, you do not see linebackers that are built like that. So if nothing else, I really could see what they see in him. I'll be interested to see, to watch, and hopefully he can push for some time today. I didn't get to watch the nickel corners as closely, Nathan, so I don't know what's going on there. And I will say that Tedrick Thompson was getting pretty much all the time at free safety with McDougald. So as of now, I think that's our safety tandem until somebody really jumps out and changes it.
Marquise Blair made a pretty good play today, though. Didn't he have a pick 6 on Russ?
He did. It was a good play. He broke on the ball and kind of got tipped up in the air. He juggled it a little bit and then came down with it, and it was a good athletic play.
It almost makes me wonder if Bradley McDougald at free safety and Marquise Blair at strong safety is a better performing duo than the previous what we just discussed.
I hope we get to find out. I really do.
Because I'm not sold on Tedrick. We keep talking about him balling out in practice. Let's see it in a game. This is meaningless.
Anyone sold on Tedrick?
I mean, we are just talking about Blair balling out in practice, though, too. Like,
true.
That's a great counterpoint.
Oh, Blair can only go up. Tedrick can only go down. This is a fact.
Well, Tedrick just runs so slow.
I really would love. I would watch for pay-per-view to watch Nathan and his wife argue. I think it would be really entertaining.
Not good. It's not good.
I could just imagine those little quips not going over so well with your significant other. Yeah. So. We could talk about more stuff at camp and a bunch of stuff there. One thing we haven't talked about that was also big news was Bobby Wagner. Guy signed a big deal. Evan, you wrote about how the deal broke down. Talk to us a little bit about it. Talked about what are the things we need to know about it, and what are the things that maybe surprised you from the way the deal was made?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think overall, it's actually a really impressive deal for Bobby. Just going off of memory while I pull up my article, $15 million signing bonus, $24.5 million in full guarantees, $24.5 million in full guarantees, $40.2 million in total guarantees, $18 million a year. The big number that cap space did we save by extending him? We actually lost about 1.8 mil in 2019 cap space by extending him. Not a big deal. We still have about 20 mil that will roll over into 2020. What's really nice about this deal is Seattle stuck to their historical precedent of only fully guaranteeing the year one base salary of the deal, which is true for Bobby's deal, just like Russell's and Lockett's deals also. But so he has a 2019 9.5 mil base, fully guaranteed, a 2020 10.75 mil base that is only protected at signing against injury. However, that vests into a full guarantee on the 5th waiver day of each year. So basically, what that means in English, 2020, his full base salary is going to vest into a full guarantee super early on, like 5 days after the Super Bowl. 2021, he has a 13 mil base salary. 5 mil of that is injury protected at signing, and that 5 mil vests on the 5th day of the 2020 or 2021 league year also. So long story short, in English, I don't see Seattle being able to walk away from this deal if they wanted to until 2022, maybe 2021. But overall, it's a really, really impressive deal for Bobby. He has strong guarantees, good cash flow, a good signing bonus, unlikely to be cut till the final year. I think I'm sure his health and the way he went about this, really led to such a good deal. But, you got to hand it off to Bobby. He represented himself, and he ended up negotiating a really strong deal for himself. So props to him.
Yeah. One question I have for you, Jeff. They drafted Cody Barton, and they have Ben Burke-Irvin. Both really are inside backers, middle linebackers by trade. Although Ben Burke-Irvin is being trained as a weak side linebacker, which is where KJ plays. I think Cody Barton has played a little bit of backup Sam linebacker.
Sure.
What does this news mean for Cody Barton in terms of if Bobby's going to be around for the next 3-4 years, what does that do to Barton's potential?
See, I never looked at them. Maybe Barton played a lot of middle. The second Barton got drafted, I looked at him as KJ Wright's long-term potential replacement. I thought that's where he slotted in for them, and I thought I remember Evan broke down KJ's deal. It looked like a 1-year deal. I think it's actually 2 years, but it seems like a 1 year, and we'll see. Based on his durability issues last year and Kendrick's uncertain future, I thought that's where Barton slotted in. I think KJ was drafted in a similar area initially, so that's kind of where I saw him. So I don't see any. Ben Burke-Irvin I kind of saw as more of like a special teams guy who maybe can upgrade Austin Calitro, a guy who was picked apart in a few games last year. I remember Kyle Shanahan just feasted on him in one of those games. So really, I saw Barton as KJ and really no impact on Bobby, really.
Nathan, any thoughts from you on what that means to the future of the linebacking crew and how Barton fits in?
Barton may have been in part a hedge in case things didn't go the way they wanted to with Bobby. I advocated for trading Bobby for a long time, but I don't think that was anything Seattle was seriously considering. And so I think, Jeff basically has the right of it that I think he's a KJ replacement. And so I don't think this affects him much at all. I think he'll probably take over in some kind of a full-time role next year if he's. Honestly, if he's as good as people and KJ himself is saying, maybe they find ways to get him on the field this year. Maybe he can beat out KJ if KJ ends up getting hurt or something. He can kind of take that job and keep it. But probably next year is when you start to see him.
So
KJ, just real quick note on the KJ thing. KJ is 31 years old next year. He has an $8.5 million cap hit. If the Seahawks cut him, they save $6 million. Only $2.5 million dead hit. I really, really do not see him getting to that second year, especially if Cody is playing well. So that's just the cap side of things.
Well, I'm going to ask you a similar question. Somebody, Komodo on chat was asking about this. Is Bobby more tradable now? What's the cap impact of after next year if they were to trade him?
Bad, because they just gave him a signing bonus. So I'm just trying to I'm just pulling up this deal real quick. If they wanted to trade him next year, you're looking at a $12 million dead money hit and only $3.5 million in cap savings. So it's just not feasible.
All right. So Bobby's around, and I do think Cody Barton is most natural position is middle linebacker. So I do think there's impact on his career, and I do think he was drafted as a hedge for Bobby. And now that Bobby's here, I think he's a little bit less valuable than he was before. I think that's just being totally real about the situation. Now, does that mean he's destined to be bad? No, he could be great, but it's not as clear of a line between where he was in college and where he's going to play here. He's got some work to do to kind of prove he can play some of those other positions. Sam is a much more physical spot. Will seems like a better opportunity for him because it is when they go to nickel, that is an inside linebacker position that, KJ and Bobby are usually guys that end up staying on the field in coverage, and Barton is really strong there, or at least is supposed to be. So it could make sense that he goes there, but then you got Ben Burr-Kirven also learning there, and Cody Barton's not really learning there right now. He's learning at Sam. So I think it's forcing them to shuffle him around a little bit, and we'll see. We'll see. I did not watch Barton today. There was not a lot to see that jumped out. And I only saw BBK do a little bit of agility drills. So I guess we'll learn more later on those guys. Any other pieces that you guys wanted to cover? I know we're only an hour into this. I always worry about us getting too late for Jeff especially. But other parts that you guys are curious about, any questions you had based on what went on in camp, and this can go for the folks on chat as well.
You know what? I do have actually one question for you guys. Have you guys heard anything about Shaquille Griffin at all?
Well
this training camp?
He played well. He had 2 pass breakups.
Did he?
One of them was really pretty impressive. He recovered on a ball in the end zone. I think he actually came across and made the play to break it up. He looked good. He has long dreads now, and he looks, I swear, like I had to take a double take because he looks a little like Sherm with how long his dreads are right now. But I know that's the big news you're looking for. But
I just haven't heard anything about him from any beat reporters at all.
I haven't heard anything about any cornerback. That's Nathan brought up the nickel spot.
I heard Trey Flowers. I heard Trey Flowers had some good coverage plays on DK, even if he caught the ball very impressively.
Yeah, it's been really quiet in that whole group.
Yeah, nobody really jumped out. I would say, I talked about Simeon Thomas just because of the way he looked. And we talked about Marquise Blair. We haven't really talked about the running backs much. I'm surprised you haven't asked about your favorite form of payment. Mr. Penny.
Penny? Mr. Penny, yeah, he had I believe, like a long touchdown run one of the first days of training camp. So, actually, being 100% serious, I think Penny's going to be really good this year. I think Carson is going to start, but I do think Penny is going to be a much better change of pace back, somebody we saw in late 2018 to really provide that burst. Great 1-2 punch. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And to be honest, like I've said before on the podcast, if you're a Seahawks fan, you better hope to God Penny breaks out, because the Seahawks will consider extending Chris Carson. And you don't want to pay big money to a running back. I'm pretty sure everybody on both sides of the debate pretty much agrees, don't pay running backs big money. And I could see Chris Carson getting big money, especially if he has a productive 2018 or 2019. The one back we haven't really talked about is Travis Homer, who seems to have balled out a little bit on special teams and getting some comments here and there.
Yeah, he looked fast and good today. J.D. McKissick got a lot of reps today as the kind of the third down back, got a lot of passes thrown his way. He looks good. CJ Procise looked good today. He had some oohs and ahs at his plays, as he usually does when he's out on the field.
Wow, a whole bunch of running backs all looking good. Huh.
They were all getting passes thrown their way. Does that make you feel any better, Nathan?
Not really.
No. Interesting.
It's a step up, but it's like the least efficient way to pass. So I don't know. Good job, Brian
Is
Schottenheimer.
it the least efficient way to pass if they're not just getting dump off passes? Like if they're actually downfield as a receiver? Like what's the difference?
Yeah. So what I've seen is that I've seen it broken down by position, but obviously running backs run like almost exclusively running back routes. But the stuff that I've seen broken down by like route type, like what would typically be considered like a wide receiver route based on where you lined up, then wide receiver routes are worth more than running back routes. So theoretically, if you're taking Procise and McKissick and you're splitting them out wide and they can be actual wide receivers, they would do just fine and be just as productive. But if you're just talking about like dump offs and working out of the backfield, I mean, they start 6 yards in the backfield or however far in the backfield, they're just not going to be getting as far downfield and all that, and it's not going to be valuable typically.
Yeah, well, one of the guys that was
also like you have Russell Wilson, like throw the ball downfield, like
they were doing that a lot today, and it wasn't just Russell Wilson. I'm here to tell you guys, Paxton Lynch looked good today. I mean, I never, ever, ever thought I would say those words, but
how bad is
I
this
would
defense?
be no.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
That was a totally reasonable response, but that was not it. He was making really hard throws deep downfield that were just dropped in a bucket. Like he was making some really impressive connections. I don't know if they have the replay of the practice that you can see anywhere or highlights that people show, but he made a great throw to Jazz Ferguson along the sideline. He made two great throws to Malik Turner. I think he made a great throw to David Moore, although that might have been Russell. I think it was Russell who made the great throw to David Moore. So, in any event, I would be lying if I said he didn't look good today. Nathan, how do you feel about that?
Paxton Lynch and DK Metcalf, star of the training camp.
What does that even mean?
I'm just, like, I don't know.
Nathan hates DK Metcalf. He hates when people are successful and his takes are exposed.
But he loves receivers.
I don't know why he doesn't love DK.
Mostly it's by you, I assume.
What?
He's literally the most impressive receiver we've had in years in training camp. Like as a rookie, like who the hell compares
to him?
That's not saying
Baldwin.
I mean, DK's balling out just as much as those guys were, if not more.
I don't know yet if we can say that.
Well, we'll know when he has 150 yards
I mean,
next
the
Thursday.
best receiver I've seen in training camp, his first time with the Seahawks in the last 10 years, is probably Steven Williams. I'm not even joking. I mean,
I
don't remember who that is.
He was this big lanky guy. He made like crazy plays every practice. He was like unstoppable. They would just throw him and then I think he got hurt and they cut him, or something like that.
I think he lost like 3 regular season games.
So, yeah, I hear you, Nathan. But it's reality, and I think making plays in training camp is better than not making plays. I know that sounds crazy, but
well, I guess Darbo.
Yeah, I think Darbo might have had a catch today. Possible.
Jeez.
I have a question, Brian.
Pick.
Yes, it was.
Brian, you were very critical last year of Penny's just physical attributes. Did he look noticeably different? Because I know all the training camp fluff stories seem to say so, but I don't want to get sucked into that again.
Yes, so he looked fit. He looked more fit than he had last year, and he looked faster. So I think both those things definitely were the case. There's nothing I saw from him that looked special. But again, these are no pad practices, so it's really hard to tell how running backs are looking. Other than, he's just not a particularly jump off the field kind of athlete. He doesn't run super fast. He doesn't cut super hard. He isn't super strong where you're just like, wow, how are you going to tackle this guy? But that doesn't mean he's going to be bad. He did look better physically than he had last year.
Okay. The other one I'd ask you about, Jacob Hollister gets a lot of attention from beat writers. I don't know much about him as a player. I've seen his name in like fantasy leagues, but I think I saw you mention him today.
So one of the things that stood out today was, I don't know if you guys had the same impression, but my recollection generally with the way the Seahawks have used the tight end in the offense is generally seam routes. Like, there's not a lot of other things that I remember the tight ends doing other than running seam routes if they're going to be in receiving routes at all. I mean, blocking and seam routes. Today, I was seeing a lot of routes that were actually coming across the formation and across the face of the quarterback, which was a little bit different than what I'd seen before. In fact, that's how the play that I think Justin Johnson got hurt on and hurt his Achilles on was one of those plays. And Jacob Hollister had another one where he cut across the formation on kind of a drag route and made a catch. I went scrambling to see who 48 was because I have a thing against tight ends that have numbers in the 40s. I mean, they need to be in the 80s or something like that. I thought he was the fullback, but he was a tight end. He looked fine. I mean, he didn't jump out, but that was a good play that he made. Ed Dixon, Nick Vannett, they all look fine. Will Dissly did not get hurt today, despite my tweet. And he did play in 7v7. I don't think he played in team drills, and he made a catch in 7v7. He looks fast as ever. He looks great. So I definitely thought to myself, if I was going to get a jersey, who would it be? And Dissly is pretty high on that list. I think everyone wants a DK Metcalf jersey. I think Dissly is still a little bit on the DL and could be a really good player and a guy that's easy to cheer for. So,
best player to ever wear number 88 for the Seahawks. So, it's a lock. Yeah.
All right, fellas. I think we're going to wrap it there. It's been great getting back together. I will be sharing more on training camp as it goes along. We might do some, quick pods depending on how things go or whatever. Hope that the show worked for folks, that they could hear it, that they could see it, all that stuff. We'll love hearing your feedback on that. We'll continue to look for ways to improve it. If you haven't already, please join up at patreon.com. It'll help us make the show even better. Patreon, patreon.com/hawkblogger. That's a huge help. Little as $5 a month would be great. Also, giving reviews, subscribing to the YouTube channel, or supporting our sponsors, guys. We have 3 great sponsors. If you want to become a sponsor, we've got room for more. So we've got one that Evan is quite passionate about, for sure. Do you want to talk a little bit about Burger Master, Evan?
I love Burger Master. They have 6 locations all over the Seattle area, and they're the best burger chain from the state of Washington. I'm not being sarcastic when I say this. They are literally the best burger chain from the state of Washington. Don't go to any other burger place. Go to Burger Master. My favorite one is the one right off of, I think it's technically Kirkland zip code, but it's that Kirkland-Bellevue border one. Classic drive-in, dine-in experience. Go get a good, juicy burger. Don't go to any other burger chain that rhymes with
anything else.
Licks.
Anything else.
Yes.
I went to Burger Master today in preparation for the pod. It was
so
very
good. It's so good. I'm gonna go. I'm up in a couple of weeks. We're gonna get Matador nachos. I'm also gonna get Burger Master that night.
Oh God, your intestinal system. Nathan, what did you get?
I got the Bacon Master fries, and I splurged on a pineapple shake. Although I gotta say, I went to the one on Buffalo Highway, and as I was waiting to turn in, they had the sign going, and the sign said chicken chips, which I think was a typo, because it wasn't on the menu, but I really wanted to ask, and then I forgot. So go to the Buffalo Highway in Mill Creek and see if they really have chicken chips, and if not, you can let them know they got a typo on their sign.
So yeah, please go to Burgermaster, tell them that the Hawk Blogger Real Hawk Talk crew sent you. And then Blake at manifestfit.com, great stuff. He's a great trainer. He's been supporting the pod, and he can do personal training anywhere. So he does it online, and he doesn't charge a ton. He wants everybody to be able to get personal training, so he's a great guy to support. And then finally, John Hurlbutt, Altitude Homes, Pierce, South King, and Thurston County. If you've got any real estate deals to do, John's a guy I've known for a while, actually. We used to work together, and solid guy. He does real estate training. He's just a good guy to know, and go do a deal with him. In fact, I think he still has a deal that if you sign up and close, he'll give $500 off the closing costs to Ben's fund. That's an additional bonus. So really good guy, great supporter of the pod. And yeah, so these are simple ways you guys can help support the show, and we'll keep providing content and listen to your feedback. So thank you again. Have a great night, and go Hawks.